In this video, we're going to be talking about some of the principles that are going to turn you from an infrastructure as code 0 to hero. Okay guys, my name's Jameson, and today let's talk about some infrastructure as code, also known as IAC. The principles of infrastructure as code include 1. Treating infrastructure as code, using version control, implementing automated testing, and continuous integration and delivery, or CI/CD. One popular tool for implementing IAC is Terraform. Terraform is an open source tool that allows developers to write infrastructure as code in HashiCorp Configuration Language, or HCL, or JSON. It enables teams to define, manage, and version infrastructure as code, making it easier to deploy and maintain complex infrastructures. With Terraform, developers can create and manage infrastructure resources across multiple cloud providers, including AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. Okay, so now that you guys kind of have the basics, let's talk about an example, or a metaphor. So think of infrastructure as code as a blueprint for your infrastructure. And just like how a blueprint provides a detailed plan for constructing a building, IAC files provide instructions for creating and managing infrastructure resources. Terraform, in particular, is like a Swiss Army knife for infrastructure. It allows you to define, provision, and manage infrastructure resources in a single unified workflow. Okay, let's stop right here and let me quiz you guys on some of the stuff that we've learned so far. Okay, so here's your question. What languages does Terraform accept? If you said HashiCorp Configuration Language or JSON, give yourself a big round of applause because you are correct. Hey everyone, back with another example here. Okay, so for today's example, we're going to be talking about Terraform. So, for Terraform, what we're going to be doing today is just launching a very simple application using the HTTPD Docker image. And we're going to go ahead and, let's say, launch 3 of these, images, or I guess containers, and we're going to go ahead and use Kubernetes. So we're going to launch 3 Kubernetes pods using a deployment and Terraform. It sounds like a lot right now, but once we go through it, you'll see it's very quick, very simple, and you guys might actually really enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you see here, I have this file called main.tf. So this is typically how we start a Terraform file with the .tf ending, file ending, and you'll see here I already actually have the file laid out for us, and I'm just going to go ahead and go through what everything in here means, and then we'll go ahead and get to the good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So starting with this first line up here, you'll see that there is something called a provider, and in the provider I am specifying this Kubernetes block, and down here under the provider, within the curly braces, I am specifying something called the config path. And all this is just telling Terraform is that all this is doing is telling Terraform that I would like to use the Kubernetes provider, or that I'm kind of building an application using Kubernetes, or I'm just like deploying using Kubernetes. And this second variable within the tags, the config path, is just specifying that the path for my Kubernetes configuration is going to be this string provided here. Okay, moving down, we have this next block called resource, and you'll notice everything here is specified in JSON format just to make everything easier. Down here in our resource block, you'll see here I have something called metadata specified, and the resource is just going to be called Kubernetes deployment, and more specifically HTTPD deployment. And all this is saying is that I'm creating a resource. It's going to be a Kubernetes deployment resource, and we're going to go ahead and call it HTTPD deployment. And just like you would in a Kubernetes YAML file, down here we're just specifying everything that we'd like for our deployment. So here, down here is our deployment metadata. Here's the spec for our deployment. Here I'm specifying that I would like 3 replicas for this. We're going to go ahead and give it the tag. The tag is just going to go ahead and be HTTPD. Going down even further, here we're just specifying template. And again, I'm just going to be using as a very simple Apache HTTPD Docker image. And scrolling down even further, you'll see here I have another resource defined, which is a Kubernetes service. And if you guys are familiar with Kubernetes services, as I hope you are, services just kind of provide a method for routing your traffic within Kubernetes. I'm going to go ahead and attach a service to this deployment. Since I am running 3 pods, this will go ahead and just distribute the traffic between the pods evenly, or just in general. And down here, you'll see here that I'm specifying everything for the service, just like within a Kubernetes YAML file. I'll go ahead and specify the tag, the metadata, which is giving it a name, as well as the ports that I'd like to use. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for that. Next, we can just go ahead and open up our integrated terminal. And if you do have the Terraform CLI, you're going to need the Terraform CLI installed for this. But if you already have the Terraform CLI already set up and configured, you can just go ahead and do a Terraform. And that will bring up all of our Terraform commands. And for right now, I'm just going to focus on the more simple commands and the commands that you're most likely going to be working with. So today is going to be init, validate, plan, apply, destroy. And I'm going to actually start out with this validate command. So if I were to do an ls, you'll see I'm actually in this week 7 directory with the main.tf file. So if I go ahead and run a Terraform validate, oh, you'll see here, actually, I already have an error, could not load the plugin. Please run Terraform init. So Terraform is picking up that Terraform actually hasn't been initialized on this directory or this file. So Terraform needs to be initialized so it can check and make sure that everything is actually correct and configured correctly. So that was a mistake on my part. So let's go ahead and go back and run that Terraform init. But this is a good way to work through some issues you may run through if you do when you do start working with Terraform. So if I run that Terraform init, it'll go ahead and download this Kubernetes provider down from the Terraform repository in HashiCorp. So next, I can go ahead and do that Terraform validate I mentioned earlier. And you'll see here, configuration is successful, or configuration is valid. And all this is doing is actually just parsing this file and just making sure that everything is with just has correct syntax. So, meaning if I were to, let's say, remove this curly brace from the file, I know obviously over here VS Code is really nice, and it's telling me that it's picking up that this Terraform file is improperly formatted. But if I wasn't using VS Code, or if I didn't know what that meant, or if I just wasn't paying attention, I could always just run a Terraform validate, and that'll tell me, hey, I noticed that this is not formatted properly, line 66. You're probably going to need to add that to fix it. See if I get back. And do that, and let's go ahead and save and run that validate again. Voila, we'll see that that works. I will have to note that validate only works for mainly syntax issues. So essentially, if you, let's say, have an issue with naming conventions, so let's say I ended up using a different name for my deployment, like my HTTPD dash whatever. If I run a Terraform validate, make sure I save that file. and run it again. Oh, it actually picks up on that. Actually, that surprised me. So if we do that, actually, let's switch it down to one replica. Let's say I switch this over to one replica instead of three, but I know that I inherently want three replicas. If I run a validate on that, that's not going to pick that up because that's more of a programming mistake rather than a Terraform mistake. So do keep that in mind. The Terraform validate command will pick up on syntactical errors that will appear during the build, but it will not pick up on like actual coding errors. So let's go ahead and proceed. The next command I'd like to introduce you to is going to be this Terraform plan. And I'll go ahead and give it the -h flag before I actually run it. And I'll explain what it actually does. So what this does is generates kind of a plan, or it shows you what will be initially created before we actually create it. And this is very useful for figuring out what's going to be actually deployed using Terraform. So if you run the actual Terraform plan command, you'll see something like this appear. You'll see a whole bunch of little plus signs because I don't actually have anything created in Terraform. So this will initially create all of my Terraform resources. And you'll see here, everything that's actually defined in that main.tf file is going to be defined down here as well. So we'll see that I have my metadata defined, my specifications. Here are the specifications that are going to be used to create my deployments. Here's the template for my pods. Here's the container. This is going to be the container information and all this other good info as well. If there were to be an issue during the planning stage, plan will go ahead and pick that up for you. Again, if I were to do this, and let's say I skip the whole validate in general and did a Terraform plan will also pick up on that, so that's a good thing to know. So if I run plan again, and that's successfully planned, if I run Terraform apply, that should now create all of my resources for me. And something nice with Terraform apply is that it will go ahead and run a Terraform plan for you before it actually applies it. So you can go through what will be created, what will be changed. And now if I go ahead and confirm yes, I would like to deploy this, Terraform will work its magic. Okay, looks like Terraform is done creating those two resources for me. So now if I go ahead and I'm using the Kubernetes extension in VS Code, so if I actually just go ahead and navigate over to that, and then go down here to workloads, and let's go ahead and go to network as well. I'll reload and open up my services. You'll see my HTTPD service that I declared over here has now been created, and down here it specifies 3 pods. If I open up this pod section, it'll be the same pods. And over here in deployment, I now have my HTTPD deployment. So everything that I've been specifying here in my main.tf has been created over here on the side. And if I were to want to, just remove everything, it's just a very simple Terraform destroy. But before I run that Terraform destroy, I'd like to, make a quick change and show you guys how that would populate. So let's say I wanted to make a change to what port I'm using on my service. I'll go ahead and save this file for right now, but let's go ahead and describe that service real quick, just to double check. You'll see here, currently it's using the target port 80 and the actual port 80. So if I run a Terraform apply, or even before that, I'll run a Terraform plan, just because that's good notation. Okay, you'll see here that it picks up that one thing will be changed. Scroll up, it'll actually tell me what's going to be changed. It's kind of far up here. We can find it. Yep, there we go. It's a very small change, but it picks it up. It's going to be under this port section, and it's changing from port 80 to port 8000. So if I actually now run my Terraform apply, it'll do the same thing. It'll tell me what's going to change, one change block, and then just need to tell it yes. Okay, now that change should have occurred, and I'll give it a second just to make sure that the change actually gets applied. And if I go ahead and describe that service again, it is now using port 8000. And that's how you would pretty much create a change within your Terraform infrastructure. And so now I think we're kind of good to destroy or kind of tear down everything that we've kind of built. So what we can do very simply is just a Terraform destroy. Again, it's going to ask you, do you really want to do this? And it'll go through and tell you what's going to be removed. If we go through down here, it's pretty much going to be the same thing during our create process. I'll give it this yes. And then it does take a second for all of the resources to go away. But it looks like this one was fairly quick. And if I wanted to be very sure, I could always run a kubectl get all. And all my services have been cleaned up. Okay, and that's it for our example on Terraform. Before we say goodbye, remember to hit that like and subscribe button for more videos, or click on one of these other videos floating around the screen if you want to learn something else cool. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Stay awesome.